Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this podcast is all about embracing our mosaic life. Well, some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it's recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. You change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I'm your host, and I have a special guest that I will introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love for you to do me a solid, and that's leave a comment. And remember to like, subscribe, and share. So now let's get started. So this is John Graham, and I don't really know John, but I saw him on, there's a little thing that I get on. It's about podcasting, and he was someone who was wanting to be a guest on different places. And when I read his stuff, it was like, oh my gosh, I have such a connection with what he's talking about that I reached out. And I don't do that very often. I usually let people come to me. And so I definitely reached out. And so I'm going to let him tell you just a tiny bit about who he is, and then we'll just kind of get into having a conversation. Go ahead, John.
I'm very glad to be here, and I connected with your profile as well when I saw it, because it struck me as if we have a similar background in our experiences, and to a degree. And what happened was I've got a BA in psychology back in the '60s, where we were trying to save the world, except that we had no discipline and no structure and no respect for authority. And we just complained a lot, but did nothing. So the next 30 years, I went from career to career to career, looking to make a difference, but having no place where I could find where I fit. And that meant a lot of disruption for my family. And at 53, we decided, my wife and I, to open our own home as a shelter for people who were struggling as much as we had struggled. And after we did that, the Department of Corrections said, we have somebody coming out of prison. Could you help house him temporarily? And we did that. And over the next 25 years, we went from our own house to 21 separate houses and a staff of 10 people. And we've helped 2,500 men and women restart their lives after prison. And we did that for two reasons. Number one, it costs more in prison to house somebody than it does to have them in the community, working, paying taxes. It just makes sense economically. Why spend $109 a day when somebody could be paying taxes and buying goods in the community? And the other issue is it's a morally right thing to do. A second chance is what our nation was founded on. Every one of us came here from Europe and Asia and Africa for a second chance. And religiously, that's the foundation of our faith, second chances. So I found after 30 years that everything came down to being on the street where people were hurting and trying to make a difference. And here's the funny thing, in helping them, they helped me and made me
Always
a better
is.
person. And they made my faith stronger
Yeah.
by helping them. It's amazing how that worked.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I have a question for you. What led you? I mean, did you have an experience with either yourself or someone you know with the prison system, or how did it just kind of morph into the prison thing?
Well, I'd never been in prison, but I'd always, I was homeless at one point because I was trying to write a book when I was 25, and I was in a camper traveling, and they repossessed my truck because I didn't realize you had to actually make payments. Uh, it's one of those middle class things that I rejected.
Yeah.
But my wife married me anyway, in spite of my
Bless her heart.
checkered past. And her friend said, "Don't do it, don't do it." But 48 years later, I send them cards saying, "We're still together." Ha ha ha.
I love it. I love it.
But what happened was I found that I just couldn't fit. I was a children's home counselor. I was a truck driver. I was a fireman, which is a great job, but I couldn't take that structure. It's a semi-military environment. And then I was a building contractor, and then I was a journalist, and I tried my hand as a minister. And here's where it got sticky, because you would think being a minister, you could be helping people. But unfortunately, many churches are about us,
Hmm.
not about helping them.
Right,
You're
right.
welcome here if you look like me and act like me and talk like me. But God forbid that you're one of those people.
Yeah.
And I found those people kept coming to my door and I couldn't help them. And so finally, I quit the church, which meant I lost my housing, and I was homeless again with my family. And that's when we said we're going to start our own shelter.
Hmm.
And so
Did
it
you have
was
children then?
our own house became a homeless shelter.
Yeah, I mean, did you have children?
Oh, they had actually they were in college by then.
Okay, okay.
Now I'll be candid. I would never recommend somebody else do that
Yeah.
because having somebody, particularly coming from prison, into your home
You
is
just
not
don't
a
know.
bright thing to do.
Yeah.
But we were more motivated than we were bright.
Well, sometimes that's good, right?
It
Because like,
actually is. Zealotry can be blind, and God does protect the innocent and the stupid. So,
yeah.
and I think I was both.
Well, when I was talking earlier and introducing you, I said that there was a connection that I had with your story. And so I'm just going to share really quick. I have an adult son that has been in and out of county jails and prisons since he was like 13.
Yeah,
And he's now in his 40s. And he would get out and then he would just go right back into doing the same old things. Now, his thing was usually like stupid things like not showing up for his probation, not paying his fine, so he'd get locked back up. So he did have some drug issues and things like that, but most of the time he went back into the system because he didn't follow the rules that they wanted him to outside. But
right.
they also, he went to a couple of rehab centers which were just glorified prisons because they were still in a prison system with the wire all around them and everything. They would take them out and let them work like dogs and then bring them back. And they charged them every single day for housing there. And then they took the money from the work that they did to pay for the housing. So when he got out, he still owed them money. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. But he got out this last time and he's doing amazingly well, I just will say. He's been out maybe a year, 2 years. I lose track of time, right? But he was homeless for a lot of it in the very beginning because
Yeah,
I could not put him in my house. I love him dearly, but we could not live in the same house. No way. And if, for one thing, since he had all the drug issues, it was like I just didn't trust him yet, right? And so I couldn't bring him in my home, but he was homeless. The jail system did nothing. It's like once they were released, you go. And that's why so many of them end up getting back in trouble because they're in between this place where nobody will hire them, and then they're in the place where they don't have an address, so they can't find a place. And he did one of the times he was living in some of those extended stays, one room with a bathroom and a little vanity, and he was paying like $400 a week to live in this place. And
hmm,
so while he was working good, he could handle it, but as soon as he was working construction, as soon as things slowed off, then he would lose it because it was by the week, and then he'd be homeless again. So it just was a recurring thing. And there was so much that I saw as being part, him being in the prison system, that I thought this thing needs an overhaul. This is a business. It is not a rehabilitation program for anybody. And so that's why I was really intrigued with what you're doing, because it is like that helping hand that I wish I could financially and everything support doing something like that, but I'm not in that position at this point. Maybe one day. But that, that's why it's so heart wrenching what I've seen him have to endure that I couldn't help with.
Your story is actually very common, far more common. We like to think it's again those people, but
Mhm.
what we when we started our program back in 2002, we had our first inmate coming out of prison. He was fully released legally, and he was coming from Cleveland, which is predominantly black, to Western Ohio, and our small town was predominantly white. So there was a natural fear among the people that those people are coming, and we
Mhm.
always think in racial terms. And there was an uproar. There was petitions. There were calls to the city council. There were ordinances passed. There were threats. Meetings were extremely heated. There were lawsuits thrown around. I had death threats, police
Oh my
protection.
gosh.
It was tough. It was
Yeah.
tough. And what we found was eventually we're able to develop a cooperative agreement with the local county probation office. And those people became my brothers and sisters or my nephews, my grandchildren. And
Okay.
people found out that we were now helping their kids, not Cleveland people. And that made a difference because they began to accept exactly your story. It's us.
Hmm.
And drugs changed everything.
Yeah.
And then we have either before or after mental health issues,
Hmm.
whether it's a cause or result. That's not my call. But 80% of my people who are in our houses have mental health or drug issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm the first to accept somebody and the last to reject them because of their issues, as long as you're willing to try. That's the
Right.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I just had a letter yet today from a woman who read a book I had written on second chances, and her son was an addict. Had gotten addicted at 19 to oxys, which was very common back then that day. That was
Yeah.
20 years ago. And they went through hell and back, the father was a cop, so they had the opposite side of the pendulum, and their son was struggling for 20 years with it. But now, 23 years later, he's been through rehab and he's made it. He's 42 years old, and they feel like he's turned a corner. And that's why we give second chances for people like your son, because
Hmm.
you never know when that one more time will be the one that
Right.
catches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as long as you're willing to try, that's what I call the definition of grace.
Yeah.
It's the idea of I'll be here at the bottom if you need me, but I cannot make it happen. I can only be here for you.
Right. That's what I tell him, as long as, like I told him now, I said, I'll help you any way I can now. You're trying, you're really, really trying and working toward having a better life. I said, but when I was tough on you before, it's because if I did things for you, which wouldn't be easy anyway, if I did, I would be enabling you to continue on that same path. And I wanted you to have a normal life, not one, where you're living in the gutter and you're doing drugs and you just don't give a shit. I wanted him to have that life that I always dreamed of for him, as a young boy.
And David Wilkerson worked in the Hell's Kitchen in New York back in 1958 when heroin was only among the street people.
Mm.
And he would often speak into
Before it got
the
famous.
before it got famous. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That was back when it was only among people of color. And the suburban white people said, well, that'll never happen to us. And he said, I am your future. And that's exactly right. Because, but what he learned was that God's grace is always there, but you have to reach out and you can reject God's grace.
Hmm.
And you, as a mother, were God's grace. And you were there, but you cannot make it happen. And you cry more than he does.
Right. Yeah. I did many, many times. And
Yeah.
it's a very difficult thing for any parent to see their child floundering and they're making such bad choices and you can't seem to to get through to them. And it's really, you just feel so helpless. And that's a lot of his life. I felt totally helpless.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that particular situation, but I'm finding that what people want more than anything else is sometimes for me to just listen.
Hmm.
And we want to give advice. We want to give answers, men in
Yeah.
particular. We want to fix you. But we just, I think women are far superior to us in that respect, is you just want to love people.
Yeah.
And that's where a mother's love is probably all encompassing. The trouble is that a mother's love can be just absorbed and eaten up with the trauma.
Hmm.
And that's when it gets so hard. It's in the Middle Ages, they had a thing called a sin eater. At a funeral, a man would eat the food from around the body as a way of absolving the sins of the deceased. But the question arose, who eats the sins of the sin eater?
Yeah.
And in other words, who heals the mother healer?
Yeah.
Who helps you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what's hard with dealing with addictions or of any sort, is that you're helping and draining all your energy and love and compassion. And how do you heal yourself?
Yeah. Well, I will say for me, I had to do the tough love and step away. And as long as
Yep.
he was wanting to be in that, if he was okay with living that life, I had to step away and say, okay, I can't be part of it. And I just had to just stop. And which was very hard for me. And so once he was able to start doing having a different mindset of he didn't want to live that way anymore, then I stepped in and said, okay, now let's have conversations, let's see what we can do. And so it was tough, but I feel like right now he's on it's not easy for him by any means, because he was incarcerated for a lot of his life, in and out. It wasn't like he was in there for 10 years at a stretch or 15 years at a stretch. It would be like 3 years, or then it'd be 5, and then it'd be 6 months. But it was like he would just continue that, what is it, their hamster wheel, whatever it is that they do, because most
Yep.
people, when they get incarcerated, especially when they're young, just continue. It's like becomes this repeat pattern that they have. So I feel really grateful that he's doing well now. And that's why I was so intrigued with what you're doing to help. So when you've got how many houses now? Did you say 20 something?
21, 21.
21? And so,
Yeah, they're more a boarding house arrangement, not a dormitory, and definitely not a penitentiary style at all.
right,
It's
right. So is
independent
it
housing. It
several different people living in one house like
we
they
have
do with
upwards four,
colleges
five,
and
six
stuff?
people. It's like a college dormitory,
Okay.
uh, or a fraternity house,
Yeah.
and we don't have staff living in the house. We monitor it daily, and we have a camera system so that if you come and go, we see you, but you're not locked in. And if you choose to leave, that's your choice.
Right.
We offer the opportunity, but it's up to you if you take it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Now, I will
wonderful.
say this, that the credit really is not mine. The state of Ohio realized that for being a red state, it's incredibly progressive when it comes to rehabilitation. They realized that people released from prison need one thing right out of the gate. That's housing.
Hmm.
If you don't have a place to go, number one, you're already rejected because you have a felony. And number two, if you don't have a family, you're on the street, so you go exactly where you're welcomed, and that would be the street. And so you will be back. So they developed our program called independent housing. And what they do is they pay us a per diem because it's cheaper, far cheaper than prison. And then our residents are able to get a job, pay taxes, pay child support, stay out of prison, and that saves the state literally 109 dollars a day times, say, 20,000 people.
Wow.
Calculate the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But more
Can't do
important,
math that
as a
well.
moral people, as a moral people, it's we feel like we're doing something, and if they reject it, that's on them. But we tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we are accountable to their guidelines, which makes us more um, disciplined.
Hmm.
So it's not just me. We're just part of the program.
Right. So do you help them get jobs?
Well, here the best part is the Dayton area where we live. They have a federal judge and a county commissioner who had the same passion, and they started a reentry coalition.
Hmm.
And so they set up all these volunteer organizations, and they train people how to get a job. They
Okay.
have a staff that's funded by the county, and so they have an 8-week course for a man who hasn't finished high school, and he gets a certificate that says, I have graduated from the reentry program. There's a ceremony, and they even give him a suit. And I've seen grown men, 45 years old, cry standing in front of a group with a suit and a certificate that says, I am a graduate.
Hmm.
And then they help them find a job. I have staff that cries when they see it.
Yeah, that sounds
So it
amazing.
takes a community. And we are very, very fortunate here that we have a community that I feel is on the right track.
So, do you feel like it's something that different states will start adopting something like that, or are there some in certain states already? Do you know? Is that something that will be able to, because I know a lot of times somebody does something like this with all kinds of things, and people say, well, that's great, and then they adopt it and put it into their neighborhood too. You know what I'm saying?
I we started, and this whole program started under, ironically, under a Republican initiative. President Bush was a compassionate conservative. He was a man who said his motto was, "When I was young and crazy, I did young and crazy things." And he was a religious man who tried to live his faith in practical ways. And he started the faith-based initiative, and that allowed funding for certain programs like ours. And
Okay.
so out of that was this idea that we as compassionate people have, if we can save the community money and still do the right thing, then everybody wins.
Right.
Be very candid. I do not believe that would happen today because the Republican Party is not the party of George Bush.
Hmm.
And I don't care what anyone's political persuasion is that the attitude now in government in general is so divisive and so combative that I would say that there's not a day that goes by that I'm not watching my back. And the the very fact that I sent out a memo to all our residents saying, all of you who are getting food stamps, be very aware that you may not get them in November, and that's make or break for
Hmm.
many of them, for all of them.
Yeah.
So we like to think that we didn't live through the Dust Bowl, we didn't live through the Depression, we didn't live through World War II, but I think for many of our people, the drug issue and the issues we're facing politically and economically could be our next big crisis if we don't handle it properly. I'm I'm very concerned. Let's put it that way.
All right. All right. Well, let's get back over to the to you. I'm really curious. When you were, I know you said you tried a whole bunch of different professions, but when you were really young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I was going to be a minister because I thought
Okay.
that my tradition was evangelical, which is a very conservative branch, and I went to a Christian college thinking that it was very clear, and I grew up believing certain set of rules. I never questioned them. And when I graduated college, I went through college with more questions than I had answers. And when I started asking questions, I found doubt to be very difficult to deal with, but doubt is very liberating.
Hmm.
And in fact, I had a priest once say that he wouldn't trust a priest who never had doubt because if he hasn't had doubt, he's not worth his salt as a priest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think how can I identify with your son if I don't question many of the things that he struggles with?
Hmm.
How can I identify with him if I don't identify with his struggles? And so my 30 years, what I call detours, where I couldn't find where I fit, And I like to say I had more confidence than I had ability. So I would try something and just not fit into it. Uh, and at 53, I was embarrassed for my family and where I had led them. And so I felt like I was given this second chance, and it was something that I fit into very well because I'm most comfortable helping people like your son
Hmm.
who are, as long as he wants some help. And I'm very uncomfortable with people who says that I'm okay, I don't need any help.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we in the middle class tend to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, I know you because you were on that podcast forum wanting to be on podcast. So, what was it that you were hoping that you would be able to do with your message by getting on podcast?
Well, what happened was when I was in the middle of the legal conflicts, trying to present a defense for our program, I would go to the city hall and there was a hostile crowd, police protection, and I would come in with reams of data because I have a doctoral degree, so I'm trained in research. And
Hmm.
so I would present all the data and say, if you do this, it will benefit you here. If you do that, it'll benefit you here. The research is clear. And I had one attorney who's a very good example of the community. He said, I don't care. I just don't want him here.
Ah,
And that's an emotional gut reaction. And what I learned was nobody gives a damn about data. They don't care about the academics of it. They only care about the emotions of it.
they want to know
And
how
a
it's going to
perfect
affect
example,
them.
a perfect example is if I were to present to your audience today a documentary on lifeboat safety and say, we're going to go on a lifeboat, a life cruise on the ocean, and we're going to have a documentary so that you're prepared for this trip, nobody would watch that documentary.
Hmm.
But if I presented a movie set in 1912 with Jack and Rose on the Titanic, you would all watch it, and everybody would say, the next time I go on a boat, the first thing I'm going to do is look where the lifeboats are,
Yeah.
because that was an emotional lesson. So I wrote a book called Running as Fast as I Can about a boy who grew up in abuse and poverty, and he was struggling to find his place when he had no background, and he spent years making mistakes. Even though he was running as fast as he could never catch up to what he called normal people. And what I learned was that is exactly the people I deal with.
Yeah.
They were dealt abuse, they were dealt a drug addiction. I had one son today said, my mother put a gun to my head when he was a child. I had another guy say, my mother was my dealer. She was the one that supplied me. And she's also the one that turned me in for the fee. So this these are people that they are doing their absolute best, but it's never enough. And what I found with this book was the lady who wrote me today said that I identified with every page of your story, including my son who was addicted at 19, and I cried all the way through your book. Now, that woman will pass on that story of second chances to others.
Hmm.
And so, since we published that book, we've had, I've sold 21,000 copies, which is a very unusual thing for independent author. But more important, we've had podcasts have come out of that. And these podcasts started off to be about the book, but they've ended up being about what you and I are talking about.
Hmm.
Second Chances and Good Samaritan Home, my nonprofit,
Yeah.
because that's the universal issue. Everybody, regardless of if you've been to prison or not, everybody, I believe, on some level wants a second chance. They want to do something better tomorrow.
Yeah. And
So
you
I've
know,
done 90 podcasts since we started, and the truth is I love them. I have a great deal of fun doing them.
yeah, it is fun. Um, so it kind of, what was I going to say? Sorry, it just went right out of my head.
I
Um,
know that feeling, trust me.
I'll think about it about midnight, you know.
Yep.
It'll come back at some point. Um, so how do people get your book? Is it on Amazon? I think I looked on it on
Amazon.
Amazon.
Here's the funny thing is,
I was going to listen
everybody
to the
thinks that
audio version, but I didn't see the audio version on. I was
the
looking on
audio is there.
Spotify.
Yeah, on Amazon you can get it hardback, paperback, Kindle Unlimited. It's free. And the truth is, I've never really tried to make money at it because the ebook is right now it's at 99 cents. It's ridiculous money because it's not about the money. I make my salary with Good Samaritan Home, but I do my passion with with the book. It's about reaching people well beyond Ohio,
Right, right,
and that's why I've had so many people write to me and say, I couldn't put the book down. I've never read a book like this. It's not because I'm a great writer. It's because I have an emotional story they can feel.
right.
And I think today we need that. We need that voice of hope. And that's what
I
it
think so
is.
too. I think so too. Well, I commend you for finding this place. Oh, I know what I was going to say. See, I knew it would come to me. When you're talking about second chances, it's not, and this may not sound like it's relevant, but to me, there's a lot of people that maybe have never had a problem with drugs, never had a problem with any of that stuff. They haven't been in jail, but they've gotten to this place in their life where they're ready to retire. And then it's like, now what? And it's almost like then they have a second chance to to build something that maybe they dreamed of years ago. So to me, that's kind of second chances too. Does that make
It's
sense?
not uncommon for retirees to say, how can I go into a nonprofit and help somebody else?
Yeah.
My daughter, who's been in business for 20 some years, is looking at how she can help us with our work.
Hmm.
And ironically, my son is a policeman and he'll be looking at retiring, looking at a second career. So what we are doing, this idea of second chance is not a negative like it was for me. For him, it will be a positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
By the way, Vicki, we had a joke in the family that my son's a cop, so he would lock him up and then I would bring him home.
I love that. I love that. Well, John, this has been definitely a pleasure, but we're just right at time, it looks like. And so I want to ask you, is there something that you wanted to say, you wanted to share in this podcast that maybe I haven't led you to, or we just haven't discussed that you don't want to get off here without having said?
uh, since there's no money really in it for me, I would encourage people to read the book because it's I think it'll touch you in some way. It can be found on Amazon, running as fast as I can, or look up Good Samaritan Home in on the web and check out some of the work we do. And you're welcome to contact me because I've had people call me and say, I have a son who, I have a daughter who,
Hmm.
and I try to be very accessible because at my age, I'm not here to be famous. I'm not here to be rich. I'm here to help somebody as I pass along, so my living is not in vain or in
Right.
for just my own ends.
Yes. One thing I've always said is I want to leave this world better than I found it. And that's the main thing.
That's a nutshell. Is right now people feel like I'm too small, I can't do anything, but you can make a light in your corner.
Hmm. That's
Maybe
right.
it's a small light, but it's very bright in the dark corner.
Well, and it takes a small one to make a big one. It doesn't start big. It just kind of, it has to, the lights have to go out, all the little particles and all of that stuff. So it cuts with a little spark.
I never envisioned 21 houses and 2,500 men and women when we first started with our first person. Never saw it coming.
Ah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. All right. So, really quick, one thing I just thought of is I want to ask that you were saying you never envisioned it from the first person. What do you envision now?
I'm working on a sequel because I'm trying to reach the broader audience because
Hmm.
I'm training my staff not just to do the work, but I'm training them to have the spirit.
Hmm.
What I look for is somebody who says he deserves to be terminated. How can we keep him? That's the
Hmm.
spirit of second chances.
I love that.
And we are at root a faith-based organization, but our faith is not to change you, it's to serve you. And the changing is in God's hands, not mine.
Right. Well, just from talking to you, I can envision it becoming something a lot more broader than what it is now in a very short period of time, especially with you getting on the podcast, getting the word out that this even exists, might put that in somebody other people's hearts to do something similar.
Well, they've changed me because I came into this broadcast coming out of the hospital today, and I actually feel healthier than I have in a long time, thanks to you.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, we want to leave everybody with an amazing feeling as they've been. I hope everybody has felt it that I have, because you've such a glow about you with your heart, and so I appreciate you being here. And one of the quotes that I always love to leave everybody with is, the best way to predict the future is create it, and that's what you're doing. You're creating
Excellent.
a better future.
Excellent. Excellent. Be a change.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Make sure that you leave a comment, ask a question. John can come back and he can look at it, and definitely share this out with other people that may really, really benefit from feeling the heart of this man and what's going on. So I will see you guys soon. Mwah.